The clock is ticking toward the Senate summer recess, and President Trump does not want to go home empty-handed. Yesterday, he tweeted, quote, the U.S. Senate should switch to 51 votes immediately and get health care and tax cuts approved. Fast and easy. Dems would do it, no doubt. GOP lawmakers remain deeply divided over the president's health care and tax reform bills. So would ending the filibuster accomplish anything before the shot clock runs out on the Senate? Joining me now to deliver as much insight as is allowable by law, it's Utah Senator Mike Lee, the author of his latest book. It's out now. It's called Written Out of History, The Forgotten Founders Who Fought Big Government. Welcome to the show, Senator Lee.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Very nice to see you. So do you think that you should end the filibuster in the Senate?
I don't. And more to the point here, I don't think it would do anything with respect to the health care discussion going on right now or tax reform. Because we can do both of those things. Either one of them can be achieved through Senate budget reconciliation, which requires only 51 votes, not 60.
What's going to happen to the health care bill?
I think we're going to pass something. I really do. No, I know some people are skeptical about it, but look,
I'm skeptical about it.
Well, sure.
I know you're skeptical about it. You voiced that.
Except that Republicans have been running for 7 years on this. 7 years saying, let us repeal Obamacare. Let us have control of the House of Representatives, of the Senate, and the White House. Those have come about little by little, with the last piece coming together in the last presidential election, and all of a sudden we have to do it. And so the American people are expecting it. We need to deliver this for them because people are hurting under this law.
So why don't you get more of your fellow lawmakers on your side?
I'm working on that every single day. And look, we really are pulling everyone together, trying to pull out all the stops to make sure this actually gets passed. This has real-world consequences for so many people, and it's got to get done. Yeah,
and, you know, they talk about the millions of people, the dozens of millions of people who will lose health care, or some who will just opt not to have it. And it's very interesting because you've got other liberty-minded colleagues like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz in the Senate, and they always say that you guys are the most conservative, but you happen to be constitutionalists. Which brings us to your book, Written Out of History, which is a great book. You're a really good writer because I found myself getting wrapped up in some of the stories and, you know, a lot of the ideas that we've lost sight of. You know, Written Out of History is about some of the people who were involved in the process of writing our Constitution, but not only are these characters forgotten, so are some of the ideas that they stood for, like Luther Martin, who was a crimson-faced drunk, but was also an anti-federalist.
He was the original anti-federalist, and yeah, he was drunk a lot of the time. He was a really good lawyer. One of his clients hired him one time saying, look, I want to retain you for this case, but on the condition that you not drink. He got around it by cutting a loaf of bread in half, soaking it in brandy, and then eating the bread from time to time. Pretty clever, if you think about it. He won the case, incidentally. But Luther Martin was the original anti-federalist, and he brought up arguments saying, if you're not careful, you're going to end up creating this all-powerful Leviathan structure in our nation's capital, and that will become the new London. You don't want that to happen.
And he was worried that's what the Constitution was becoming. And it's interesting because I think conservatives and constitutionalists have always owned Alexander Hamilton as their own, but the left is now trying to co-opt Hamilton. And as you write in the book, leftists have a way of politicizing their history. What do you mean by that?
I call this the Hamilton effect. You know, the Broadway musical Hamilton has brought a lot of people into familiarity with Alexander Hamilton. A lot of people on the left are saying, he's our guy. He was the original progressive among the founding fathers. That's not true. Sure, he was less reluctant about centralizing power than some of the other founders were, but he was no progressive. In fact, measured against today's standards, I believe he would be a conservative. He was certainly someone who understood the need to follow the Constitution once it was put in place.
No, it's interesting because the people I know who know the most about Alexander Hamilton tend to be constitutionalists. They tend to be constitutional conservatives. Lastly, I want to ask you about the NSA and the encroachment of government and unwarranted spying on Americans. What would James Otis think about the NSA?
James Otis would be horrified by the NSA. And we don't really have to speculate there because, Kennedy, these issues are not all that unique to our time. We think they are because the technology's new. But the issue is as old as dirt. The issue certainly was well worn by the time of James Otis, who I discuss in my book, Written Out of History. James Otis talked a lot about the abuses by British law enforcement officials of these things called writs of assistance. He's basically said, we're doing important stuff for the government, for the king, let us do it, let us into your house. If we're not careful, that's what the NSA will become. I don't mean to smear the character of anyone working at the NSA.
Yeah.
I believe for the most part, those who work there are well-intentioned, hard-working, dedicated people.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But we've got to keep carefully limited the power they have, especially as it relates to the American people. We don't want them spying on the American people without a warrant.
Absolutely right. Well, Senator Lee, thanks so much for coming by. I will see you on the Outnumbered Couch on the Fox News Channel Friday at noon Eastern. And everyone should go out and get this book, Written Out of History. There it is. It's fascinating. If you love historical stories about people who had great impact on the Constitution, you will absolutely love this book. Thanks again.